Have you ever really thought about how what you eat can totally change your mood, your focus, or even how you sleep? Well, today we're diving deep into the world of biogenic amines. These are the powerful messengers our bodies create from the very building blocks of life, amino acids. We're going to find out how these tiny molecules become the master regulators of our entire inner world. So that's the big question, right? How on earth do these simple amino acids, things like tyrosine or tryptophan, transform into molecules that can literally dictate our mood, sharpen our focus, or kick off our fight or flight response? That is the mystery we are going to solve together today. Okay, here's the game plan. We'll start with their origin story, where they come from. Then we'll meet the famous catecholamine crew. After that, we'll look at the other major players that mess with our mood and sleep. We'll also see how our bodies clean up this whole system and how that gives doctors some amazing clinical clues. And of course, we'll wrap it up with a super high-yield summary perfect for revision. Let's start right at the beginning, the origin story. How does a simple, humble building block transform into such a powerful, potent messenger? So, what in the world are biogenic amines? Well, put simply, they're small, super active compounds made directly from amino acids. But don't let their small size fool you. These guys wear a ton of different hats. They can be neurotransmitters firing away in the brain, hormones traveling all over the body, or even local mediators that just act on the cells right next door. The way they're made is actually pretty elegant. It's a simple formula. You start with one amino acid. Then, an enzyme called a decarboxylase comes in and basically just snips off a piece. But, and this is crucial, that enzyme can't do its job alone. It needs a little helper, a coenzyme that comes from vitamin B6. And the result of that simple little reaction? Boom, you've got a powerful biogenic amine ready to get to work. Okay, now it's time to meet our first major family of these molecules. I call them the catecholamine crew. This is a group of some of the most influential molecules in your body, and what's so fascinating is that they all come from just one single amino acid, tyrosine. First up in the crew, we have dopamine. It's born from tyrosine, and it's absolutely essential for so much of what we do, managing our movement, driving our motivation, and controlling that feeling of reward. And when its levels get out of whack, the consequences are huge. Too little is famously tied to Parkinson's disease, while too much is a key factor in schizophrenia. Now, following the chain, dopamine itself can be converted into our next molecule, norepinephrine. And get this step requires vitamin C. It's just an amazing link between what you eat and how your nervous system works. Norepinephrine is the classic neurotransmitter for our sympathetic nervous system, so it's the one that ramps up our alertness, our heart rate, and our blood pressure. Clinically, it's deeply tied to our mental state. Low levels are associated with depression, and high levels are linked to stress and anxiety. And the final member of the crew is epinephrine, which you probably know better as adrenaline. It's made from norepinephrine, way down in the adrenal medulla. And here's the key difference. While norepinephrine is mostly a neurotransmitter, epinephrine is the classic fight-or-flight hormone. It floods our system in an emergency, and this incredibly powerful effect is why we use it as a life-saving treatment for things like severe allergic reactions and cardiac arrest. Okay, so beyond that powerful catecholamine crew, there are a few other really important biogenic amines that regulate huge parts of our daily lives, everything from our mood and sleep to our allergic responses. These guys come from different amino acid parents, but they are every bit as important. All right, let's talk about serotonin. It comes from the amino acid tryptophan. Yep, the one everyone talks about in Turkey. Serotonin is a true multitasker. It's in your brain, your gut, your platelets, and it acts like a master regulator for your mood, sleep, and appetite. This is exactly why low levels are linked to depression and why it's the target of those SSRI medications. On the flip side, a massive overproduction of it is the hallmark of a rare condition called carcinoid syndrome. And in a really cool twist, serotonin itself is the starting material for our next molecule, melatonin. Made in the tiny pineal gland, melatonin has one really vital job. It's our body's internal clock. It controls our sleep-wake cycle, our circadian rhythm. And when that rhythm gets all messed up, we feel it as insomnia or that dreaded jet lag. Last but not least, we have histamine, which is made from the amino acid histidine, and it has three pretty distinct jobs. First, it drives allergic responses. Second, it stimulates the release of stomach acid. And third, it helps keep us awake. And this makes perfect sense of why we use antihistamines, to block those exact effects when we're trying to treat allergies or even reduce stomach acid. So we've met all these powerful messengers, but what happens after they've delivered their message? Well, that brings us to the cleanup phase. And this process isn't just about keeping the system balanced, it actually gives doctors some incredibly important clues for diagnostics. The cleanup is handled by two main enzymes, MAO and COMT. Think of MAO, or monoamine oxidase, as kind of the general purpose cleaner. It works inside our nerve terminals, breaking down all sorts of amines after they've done their job. COMT, on the other hand, is a specialist. It has one specific job. It only targets the catecholamines, dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine, and shuts them down. And this is where things get really brilliant from a clinical standpoint. The leftover bits from this cleanup process, they get excreted in our urine. So by measuring the levels of this molecular trash, doctors can actually diagnose some really serious conditions. For example, if they see a high level of VMA, the end product of catecholamine breakdown, that points straight to a pheochromocytoma. And just like we talked about before, high levels of 5-HIA, the breakdown product of serotonin, is the key marker for carcinoid syndrome. It's like detective work. Whew, we have covered a lot of ground. So now let's pull it all together with a super high-yield summary of the key things you absolutely need to remember. And here it is, the ultimate revision tool. This table connects every single amine to its parent amino acid, its main job, and its most important clinical link. Just take a second and look at the patterns here. See how the entire catecholamine crew, dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine, they all come from tyrosine, and how both serotonin and its child, melatonin, come from tryptophan? This is the core information, all in one neat package. Now, to help you lock in the 6 major players we've talked about, here is a fantastic mnemonic. Don't need every single happy memory. That gives you dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, serotonin, histamine, and melatonin. It's a really simple trick to nail those key names for your exams. All right, let's do a quick pop quiz to see what you've learned. First question, which biogenic amine is way elevated in carcinoid syndrome? The answer is serotonin, right? Remember, in carcinoid syndrome, those tumor cells are just pumping out tons of serotonin, which is exactly why we check the urine for its waste product, 5-HIA, to make the diagnosis. Okay, next question. What is the one single amino acid that is the common ancestor for that whole catecholamine crew? That's right, it's tyrosine. It's the essential starting point for dopamine, which then gets converted to norepinephrine and finally to epinephrine. One ancestor, 3 incredibly powerful descendants. And that brings us to our last thought for the day. We've seen how these tiny molecules, all derived from the food we eat, control so much of our inner universe, our moods, our thoughts, our actions. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What does that really tell us about the profound, inseparable link between our simple biochemistry and the very essence of who we are?